Hi, this is Nat, and this is part 2 of Gaming Outside In. Today I'll be talking about the more negative aspects of how the gaming world is viewed. As I covered in part 1, sometimes the older forms of media may be a little too preoccupied with the actions within their perceived rival. This can lead them to need to find fault where there is none. And when they do, games can't just be bad, they have to be the worst. Yet the same things they blame games for perpetrating are the things they use themselves for the purposes of attention. A newscaster will smoothly, and without any semblance of irony, make a segue from a story about the atrocities of whichever foreign war we are going to pay attention to that week, to a story on how this violent video game is turning children into trained killers. Those who commit horrific acts of violence are paraded on newscasts as if they are the story. We comb over the details of their existence. Any book, CD, movie series, or games they happen to own are held up as inspirations for their actions. The news screams at us to look at the violence, to listen to the violence. Here is the killer's room. Here is the emergency services call they placed. Here is the video they posted. That violence and stomach-churning procession of horrors is presented only as a hypocritical ratings grab. It doesn't inform nor convey anything we can relate to. This only makes these terrible things so much worse by their being incomprehensible. You might call this use of imagery gratuitous. You may call it disgraceful profiteering of a real tragedy, but it's there, and it often claims the moral high ground while ignoring or maybe being unaware of the mountain of bodies that the high ground is built upon. This is why I question and challenge any attack on the subject matter of a video game. Its content is fake. It is both a toy and it is art. It is ideas. Some of us have been awful to one another throughout the whole of our history, and we do not need images on screens to plant these notions. If the problem is that there is not enough of the type of games that you would like to see, then either make them yourself or support the people that do make them. Video games are now the largest entertainment industry on the planet. There will be enough of an audience for your game if it is good. You do not need to tear down and to police culture. You need to nurture and encourage it for it to evolve. Calling games murder simulators or blaming them for reinforcing the patriarchy is soundbite philosophizing. Games are more a product of global culture than the other way around. Why do we get mostly grizzled, relatively silent male heroes in our big budget games? Because generally more men played games than women, so developers took to aiming their titles at men. Make him reasonably quiet, if not mute, and language barriers aren't as much of an issue. View him from behind or in first person, and ethnicity isn't so much of a problem. We've got a global superstar right here, just by blending all the least offensive traits we can think of into a bland package. It's uninspired, lazy, and something I think we're all a little tired of by now, but it's not oppression. Returning to something else I covered in part 1, the advertisements used to sell games affects the language used to subsequently discuss them. This leads us to a problem. The language of advertising is aimed at demographics, not individuals, not real people. It's painted out in broad strokes and leans heavily on the positive presentation of its subject matter. Think of any movie of some real-life harrowing tale. The trailer will focus not on the human tragedy, but on the moving nature and the great performances. Now look at games. You are releasing an action-heavy first-person shooter with a focus on multiplayer. The whole idea of the game is that killing your friend's avatar is a good thing. I happen to agree. This indeed is a very good thing. However, how can an advert like that appear to someone not from the gaming world? Yes, there is violence in video games. Yes, the media we consume has an effect on us and how we perceive the world. But to assume that violence in video games equates to violent acts because of video games is an easy headline at best, and utterly misguided and dangerously misinformed at worst. The quantity, quality, and immersion of the content being consumed is at least as important as its nature. Yet the words "I don't know" or "we don't know" are not used often enough. Whether this is due to some one reason or is down to there simply being a prevalence of charlatans and snake oil salesmen, well, I don't know. I do know that people as a species like the idea of answers, and people who claim to have them quickly garner much attention. It certainly isn't that I would choose ignorance or anything so foolish. It's more that, in my experience, no answers are final, and any good thoughts or research raises at least as many questions as they purport to solve. We are Dinoslippers USB. If you didn't like this video, then think again. You may have been mistaken, or maybe not, but there's a like button there if you want it. If there's anything you know that you don't know, that you want to know because, well, you know, then join in the comments below. And if you really like this video, then click subscribe and check out my other videos.